Breaking right now, Republican Senators Ron Johnson and Rand Paul releasing the first batch of text messages from Dr. Anthony Fauci's government iPhone. In one exchange from January of 2021, Fauci, then CDC Director Rochelle Walensky, and then Surgeon General Vivek Murthy discussed COVID vaccination and pregnant women. Fauci flags a potential concern after the second dose, writing that many people experience, quote, significant cytokine storm and fever, and that this, quote, theoretically could be associated with miscarriage in the first trimester. Walensky responds, quote, definitely a good point, especially after dose 2. A cytokine storm is essentially when the body releases too many inflammatory signals that could cause high fever, inflammation, and in extreme cases, life-threatening illness. So this is just coming to light now, Sandra, that Fauci had these concerns. And I remember when I got the boosters, I developed pericarditis, then that went away. Then when I had the second booster, it came roaring back again. So, you know, the body reacts differently to these things depending on who you are. And it goes back, too, to the discussion we were having around the hearing last week and some of the questions in the room, how Dr. Fauci wasn't actually seeing or treating any of these patients to see some of these effects firsthand, but just speaks volumes to the severity and the importance, obviously, the decisions that were being made in that time. And, you know, obviously brings up an even bigger concern that we can't get him to answer any questions today, John.
That was obtained by Ron Johnson, the Republican senator from Wisconsin, and Rand Paul. They both serve on the Senate Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee. And as you say, he appeared under subpoena at that hearing last week. And a couple of days later, you know, we got this note from Ron Johnson here that they had obtained a copy of the cell phone that Anthony Fauci had used during the pandemic from HHS. So there's more than 34,000 messages here, and we're just starting to fillet those right now to understand what's in some of these messages. And one thing I look at here, you know, there's this message between Fauci and Vivek Murthy, who was the, Surgeon General at the time. And he says, for pregnant women, this is Murthy writing to Fauci here. For pregnant women considering getting the vaccine, are you aware of any data or theoretical reason why vaccinating early versus late in pregnancy would be preferred? That's a message from late January of 2021. You have to remember, go back in time here 5.5 years ago. That's when they were just starting to push out the vaccine and people were getting this. Here's another message from just a day later. This is January 6th of 2021. Again, this is Murthy writing to Fauci. What is the sense, as well as Tony, that I was surprised to see the WHO put out a strong like saying that they do not recommend Moderna in pregnant women? That's a strong statement to make and potentially quite damaging to public confidence among pregnant women. Now, we've just called Ron Johnson, who's on that committee. And again, this was his subcommittee, which is under the Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee that had Fauci before it last week. And we're trying to get the senators on the Republican side of the aisle. At that hearing, about a week and a half ago, they were frustrated with Anthony Fauci because they had questions for him about what the origins of the pandemic were, but also some of this information that was gleaned about the vaccine, whether or not it worked properly. You're seeing some questions right there about particular types of vaccines. Remember, this is from Moderna, and they just wanted to get to the bottom of some of this. And don't forget that they then sent a criminal referral to the Department of Justice on behalf of that committee, did not pass it through the entire Senate, but sent it down to DOJ. DOJ indicated late last week that it was in receipt of that. Some folks, who are legal eagles will argue that because they did not do this by the book, did not pass this through the entire Senate, that they might look askance at that at DOJ. And also people who are constitutional scholars would argue that, he did, in fact, invoke the Fifth, although there's some question about whether or not, since he had that kind of ex post facto shield offered by former President Biden with the pardon there, as to whether or not that would apply. Even if they were to prosecute Fauci, this would probably wind up in court for quite a while as they, go through that Fifth Amendment question there. But these are documents and things that people are going to have a lot of interest in understanding. If it probably goes far beyond the vaccine. These are the first things that we've seen so far. 34,000 messages is a lot to fillet when we've only had this about 20 minutes or so. We just don't know. So we will continue to look at this, and as we get things that are newsworthy, we will bring them to you. Guys?
Hey, Chad, it's John here. I thought it was kind of curious that according to the senators...
There are certainly some people I have in my phone, for instance, which is just a telephone number because I haven't bothered to put in the contact. But again, but I also have, an awful lot of contacts under names, especially having been on Capitol Hill for years and years and years. And so that is a little strange. And so we don't know what that means. We don't know if that would make it harder for them to divine who he's talking to or who he's texting with or calling, and whether he just didn't keep a contact list in the way that we do now, a lot of us on our telephones.
So should we assume, since they know that this was Rochelle Walensky and Vivek Murthy, that those were two of the named contacts?
I think that would be my divination of this as I look at this at first blush, because again, how else would you know unless they had done 2 + 2 and somebody says we know that's Walensky's number, we know this is Murthy's number, or something like that. It appears that there might be another level of this as they try to suss out. If they come up with interesting text messages and say, well, who was that he was talking to, unless they know that person at HHS or someplace else in government, or maybe somebody putting out information about the pandemic or writing in Nature Medicine, the very controversial article about proximal origins of the pandemic. That's something that they have to look at.
A lot to dig into here. Really appreciate the update, Chad. Jump back in as you get more breaking news.
All right, thanks for watching. Check out my new podcast.
It looks like your question cut off. Fox News is a major American conservative news and political commentary television channel and digital media platform. Depending on what you were looking for, here are a few common topics. Watching or streaming, you can stream live coverage through the Fox News app, Fox One, or through a cable satellite subscription. Programming and hosts. Their lineup includes opinion and news shows like Fox and Friends, Special Report, and commentary hosted by personalities like Jesse Waters, Laura Ingraham, and Sean Hannity. Company background. Created in 1996 by Rupert Murdoch, it is owned by Fox Corporation and headquartered in New York City. Could you clarify what specific information or news topic you're looking for regarding Fox News?